nature does its thing, as it ultimately will do, we can't avoid it. So it is something that we all must feel. I know that what I miss of them is within me. They gave it to me, and that gift can be recognized and appreciated and continued on. The more that I honor what once was, it's not always going to feel the same. I know, like I said, grief, sometimes it just becomes a part of you and you get used to it, but it does change shape and it does change form, and we get to feel it through tons of different experiences. I wrote down, cherish the memory and live on through it. And when you least expect it, nature has cunning ways of finding our weakest spot. It will hit us in that spot that hurts and that we're afraid of, but that is what grief is. Let me rest, let me go. See my death become a trail, and the trail leads to a flower. I will blossom in your sail, every dream and waking hour. Everybody, and welcome to this episode of Flowering Philosophies. I am your host, Inayah. Today, I wanted to talk to you about grief. I have been going through a lot of grief in the past years of my life. I have sat with a lot of that grief and kind of finally began to process it in a way that started to grant me a lot of peace and understanding. And I think I just wanted to share some of the things that I've learned moving through grief and processing it, and hopefully some advice or insight as to how to move through it, because I know it's a collective feeling that we all go through. It's something that we can't really avoid. As much as humans love to manipulate and leverage and control everything, we can't control time, and we can't control nature in the sense that things are born and move through their life cycle and pass away. It's something that has always been painful and true to the human experience. No matter what age you are, no matter what you're going through, I know we all experience grief, and grief doesn't always just accompany death, I think, not just physical death, but there's a lot of emotional deaths that we experience all the time, whether that is a breakup romantically, with a friend, with a life that we once knew. And when we change our life, when we move through change and loss, we experience grief. There's a lot of pain that accompanies grief, but there is also a lot of acceptance and peace and clarity that I think comes with it as well. I never want to advocate for just trying to turn our pain into something positive. We must move through that cycle as we need to. Before we jump right in, I want to do our usual segment of just setting the scene a little bit for you. I am currently not wearing a scent right now because I just took a shower and put my clean clothes on here, so don't have a perfume of the day for you today, but I do have my oolong tea, my favorite oolong tea that is from a little shop in Hampstead in London. I've talked about this before in one of my other episodes, but I drink this sometimes in the afternoon for a little pick-me-up after a meal, and I am having it actually in my grandparents' mug that was handed down to me, very special, with lighthouses and the beach. And then my mom actually got me this really, really cute Marie loose leaf tea holder, so it brews my tea and I get to see a little ceramic Marie hanging out of my teacup from the Aristocats. Really sweet. She reminds me of my cat Maisie quite a bit. But anyway, actually Maisie kind of gives me more Duchess vibes. If you're an Aristocats fan, then you know what I'm talking about. So the definition of grief is deep sorrow, especially that caused by someone's death. So like we said, death, I know we're really jumping in here. Grief can accompany, yes, physical death and loss, but I think it can also accompany the death of a relationship or of a life that we once knew, like I said. Today, we're working with some really beautiful blue hydrangeas that are dedicated to my grandparents. I lost both of them pretty back to back, and I feel extremely loved and guided by them in a way that, of course, I experienced on this earth, but it's also now something that I've never experienced before, feeling like in touch with people who love me, even once they've passed this human experience. It's something you can't really describe. I've talked to a lot of people who have lost their loved ones, and just the way that their loved ones kind of manifest again into their life, whether that is through an animal or a symbol or a sign of some sort, just the way that your loved ones can speak to you once they're gone, reminders and synchronicities and signs that I can't even make up. It's so beautiful. And it's something that, of course, is accompanied alongside a lot of pain and a lot of change and sadness. And I think the first thing that I really want to emphasize and that I wrote down here was the gift of grief. That's what we're talking about today. The pain that accompanies it. It's important to feel it and to not kill it, because I believe that we feel, I know there's like some really famous Andrew Garfield interview where he's talking about losing his mom and how like he's not afraid of the pain and of the grief because it just signifies how much love was experienced and felt. I think the grief that we experience when moving through a breakup, when losing a loved one, anything like this, we are afraid to go through it because the pain is so visceral and all-encompassing. But I promise you, like we said, grief is such a collective experience that we wouldn't go through it if we weren't meant to. If our bodies and our minds were not equipped to move through loss and change and grief, then they wouldn't. And I know sometimes it feels like we are going to die, and that, grief can be such a physical and mental heavy emotion, but we can carry that. It is a true and painful part of the human experience, but it is something that everybody has felt, and no matter what form of it. I've already referenced this in one of my episodes in the misconception of strength. I talked about how important it is not to kill off our emotions, not to numb them, run from them. We're taught to just disregard our emotional intelligence and to just push away these natural experiences and emotions that humans are equipped and meant to feel. We shouldn't fear it, because I think that fear can limit us from a lot. I have been very afraid of making change in my life because of the loss or, grief that accompanies that change. There are things that I am pushing myself to do now that I once did not think I could follow. I didn't think I could follow those pursuits or those passions because I was so afraid of the changes that would have to happen. And moving through that change and getting closer to the things that I truly desire, I do recognize the grief and the loss that comes alongside that. People are definitely kind of onto something when they say, if you want your dream life, you have to sacrifice your old one. Of course, I like to focus more on what we're gaining than the loss of something, but we do shed different versions of ourselves and different things that we need and what we desire. It all changes throughout our life, and we must be willing to let go of what was once before and not be afraid of the grief that we might feel when the change comes. Physical death is sort of one of the most intense feelings of grief because it's one that you can't ignore. You can't suppress that change from coming. It comes and it's in your face, and you are left to carry that grief. Sometimes, grief, we can protect ourselves from it by limiting ourselves from change or new experiences. But when nature does its thing, as it ultimately will do, we can't avoid it. So it is something that we all must feel throughout our human experience, and that is scary, but it's also comforting to think about, I guess. I would like to take a quick second to thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. During seasons of moving through grief, I have found it extremely helpful to focus on learning a new skill. Sometimes when I want to learn a new skill, I don't always hold myself accountable. So having a class-like structure to show up for, it's been really, really helpful for me. Learning how I can continue to exercise my creative muscle with my writing and learn as much as possible about poetry and literature. I've been able to ground myself in the present moment when I focus on learning something new, doing something that I love with my hands, with my mind. I've been trying to uplift my spirits in these colder days by improving how I take care of my plants inside. I'm trying to fill my space with as much life as possible, flowers, of course, but indoor plants as well. So I have been learning how to take care of my plants better, diving into the world of literature and poetry, taking classes that are taught by world-class creatives, people who know what they're doing, know what they're talking about. It's been really helpful for me to dive more into my hobbies and enhance my skill set. There are classes on Skillshare taught by professional illustrators, renowned graphic designers, and successful entrepreneurs. Basically anything that you are wanting to learn more about, dive further into, Skillshare has a class for it. The platform is designed to help you build creativity in your life, being led by real successful creatives. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare plus 20% off your first year. Get started today. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video. One of my favorite quotes from Call Me By Your Name. I actually, you know what? Let me grab the book really quickly because like I said, I've referenced this quote that I'm about to say in another episode of mine, The Misconception of Strength. I just think strength really means sitting with your feelings, such as grief, and experiencing these things even when they are hard and painful, but knowing that we can come out on the other end with a sense of peace. Hold on. And something that, you know what? You can still hear me even as I'm walking into the hallway here where the books are. But, this became my favorite book when I was a teenager because it really got me through the first levels of grief that I felt. Where even is it? Okay. Oh, here. Okay. Okay, here. The father here, he's comforting his son who is experiencing and about to experience a great amount of grief. And he says, "What lies ahead is going to be very difficult. Fear not, it will come. At least I hope it does. And when you least expect it. Nature has cunning ways of finding our weakest spot." Like I said, nature, this is nature. This is the true human experience. Like, it will hit us in that spot that hurts and that we're afraid of, but that is what grief is. Finding our weakest spots. Just remember, I am here. Right now you may not want to feel anything. Perhaps you never wish to feel anything. And perhaps it's not with me that you'll want to speak about these things, but feel something you did. We rip out so much of ourselves to be cured of things faster than we should that we go bankrupt at the age of 30 and have less to offer each time we start with someone new. But to feel nothing so as to not feel anything, what a waste. Right now there's sorrow, but feel with it the joy you felt. But feel with it the joy that you felt. Right now there's sorrow, but it's there because of the joy that you felt. And so I wrote down here in my notes as well, grief is an emotion that seems to take a different shape over time. At first, it can feel all-consuming, and then it can turn into a dull ache or a wave that washes over you multiple times a day, all day, once a week, once a month, and sometimes it just settles in and becomes a part of you. How do the people that we are grieving get to live on through us? So those are like some thoughts I was having while moving through the pain. And the pain is brutal, man. Like when I was going through a breakup situation in the winter, I wrote about this, and I'm not going to read you the whole thing because it's very personal, but I think there are a few lines that kind of really embody how pain, like the loss of a relationship or the loss of a loved one or the loss of an experience or a life as you knew it, the pain that accompanies that. Sometimes it's about sitting with it until it kind of just becomes the pain that you can hold and accept, and over time it will change shape and it will dissipate and it will turn into something else the longer that we sit with it and hold it and nurture it. And I felt like this poem that I wrote kind of summed up that. It was after this like long diary entry I wrote, and they say it gets better, but what they really mean is you get used to it and it turns into something else. That pain you never wanted to feel, You just accept it as pain, and it's no longer about them, and you wish it still was, because maybe there'd still be a chance. The pain means it must be too hard, and that this can't be, but it is. And you just feel it, and that's it. All I know is I've never held pain like this and been able to let it go. I've always had somebody attached to it. It's starting to just become a feeling, one without a long story that has to mean something. The disappointments in life are becoming just what they are. The acceptance. Damn. Yeah, so I was really going through it. But just reading that, even though that was about a romantic death in a way, it really reminded me of how I felt grieving my grandparents. Even though I had lost them throughout this period of the past year or so, it all really began to hit me in a different way when I was just sitting on my couch one night. I was just allowing myself to sit in some silence. A few weeks ago, I posted an episode called "What Are You Running From? Try to Sit with Yourself." And it was about really kind of nurturing and honoring these emotions that maybe we're going through or feeling that we kind of just suppress and don't even know are coming up in our life and through our experiences, and sitting with them can just help us gain a lot of insight and peace and wisdom. And it's very hard to do that sometimes. Sometimes it's so hard to sit with our feelings and our emotions. Like I'm saying, it's the pain that we don't want to feel. We don't want to feel this grief. But I was sitting on the couch and I just turned off the TV. I let myself be in silence and to hold this little part of me that felt so afraid and scared. And it was like this inner child in me, right? You kind of have to just sit with yourself and realize all these different parts are there. And there was part of me that was hurting so bad because it was the little girl in me who lost her grandparents, and she didn't know how to grapple with that. It's gonna make me cry, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate. When you lose a loved one like that plays a significant role in your life, even if you don't see them all the time. Maybe they're just a huge part of your structure, your family tree, who you are and who make up your loved ones. Losing like a matriarch of the family or somebody who played such a significant role in your life and your childhood and who you are. There was part of me that my adult mental mind knew that they died, or that they were gone, or we had to begin to let them go. But there was a child in me that didn't understand that. And I think just sitting with that child's grief and holding them and, it's going to be okay, I was able to feel this peace at the end of that painful process. At the end of those tears, I felt as though, you know what? My grandparents are here with me. The fact that I feel this and I feel this grief and this loss and this absence of them shows me what they did give me, what I am missing from them, why I miss them, why I'm feeling this, because of the joy that accompanied it, the joy I felt, the love I felt, the support I felt from them. If I'm missing that, it means that they gave that gift to me, and I can continue to give that gift to myself. I can remember those feelings and I can carry them on. I was talking to one of my friends who was going through a breakup, and he was just saying that he experienced this inner child joy when he was in his relationship, and the types of gifts that him and his partner would give each other were very understanding to that inner child, and nobody had ever really treated them like that before. And it really reintroduced him to a lot of his favorite things when he was a kid in that loving relationship that kind of encouraged him to do so. Even though he's grieving the loss of the relationship and is so sad that doesn't exist in his experience anymore, he was gifted with reinvigorating that passion, and he can carry that forward in anything that he does. And I feel similarly about my grandparents. I miss them. I wish they were here. I wish I could talk to them, but I know I can in a different way. I know that what I miss of them is within me. They gave it to me, and that gift can be recognized and appreciated and continued on the more that I honor what once was and allow the grief and allow the pain and the loss to move through me. So that brings me to, with it, the joy you felt. That's why I pulled up the Call Me By Your Name book here, is because pain, feeling it and not killing it, can allow us to get to the other side and allow us to remember and love and honor the people or the relationships that we're losing and what they gave us. The greatest honor that I can give and do for my grandparents now is carry them on with me through my ways. I naturally will do this just because they are my blood, but also intentionally, right? Like listening to the music that they loved to listen to. And these flowers are a dedication and a symbol for them, because hydrangeas were a very big part of my childhood. They grow where I'm from. I have a tattoo of a hydrangea. I wanted to dedicate both of these arrangements to them, even though it's silly. You know what? This is my version of processing grief, playing with flowers and making arrangements that I know they would love, their favorite types of flowers. I'm allowing the loss of them to remind me of what there was and the gifts that there were, and how I can continue to carry that on, even if it's just through a simple arrangement that sits in my home and brings me joy and reminds me of them. Carrying on the joy. How do the people that we are grieving get to live on through us? Maybe in our romantic relationships, we don't want to relive that and we don't really miss the person, or we have to move on. But, you know, who did we become through that relationship? What did we learn? What was there? The beauty, the gifts that live within that. We feel the grief that accompanies the change or the loss of those things, because ultimately they were gifts to us. They were things that we loved and that we can continue to carry on. I'm not saying that our pain is going to flip immediately to joy, but I do think that there are ways to honor our grief, to move through the pain, that it's not always going to feel the same. I know, like I said, grief, sometimes it just becomes a part of you and you get used to it, but it does change shape and it does change form, and we get to feel it through tons of different experiences. And I wrote down, cherish the memory and live on through it. If there are friendships that are no longer in my life and things have changed, or my grandparents and people I love are no longer here, I don't want to lose myself to the despair that accompanies their loss. I want to cherish the memories that I had with them. I was actually, I don't remember when this was. I think it was last summer. Yeah, last summer. I was walking through Hyde Park, and I swear, man, those parks in London, I'm sure maybe Central Park is similar to some people, or any park. I find a lot of parks in London to be like, when I go there, I have these very transcendental experiences and realizations. And I'm not on any drugs, I promise you. I'm walking around there sober and thinking and writing and listening to music. And I was listening to a song called Terminal Paradise by Adrienne Lenker. She says, let me pull it up. We really have a lot of writing references today. Sometimes when we lose a loved one or we are moving through a loss of some sort, it can kind of manifest in different ways and different signs and symbols and reminders. My grandparents have spoken to me through so many different crazy like coincidences, synchronicities, symbols, signs, animals, birds. Like, it's a song, but it's one of my favorite poems of all time, and throughout it there is references to birds here. Warm, so warm, screaming in the field as I was born. Worm, will you return me to the robin's beak? I'll be a bird. Terminal, we both know, let the rest of me go. See my death become a trail, and the trail leads to a flower. I will blossom in your sail, every dream and waking hour. So there's more to it, but they repeat that again, saying, let me rest, let me go. See my death become a trail, and the trail leads to a flower. I will blossom in your sail, every dream and waking hour. Makes me emotional, man. This song has really helped me move through grief, and that was one of the last things I wrote down on my list was music. There have been a lot of songs that have helped me get through this. You know what, maybe honestly I might link a playlist, a Spotify playlist. I've kept my Spotify kind of private because I just have all my like teenage playlists that are still public, but Kintsugi on There Is a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard by Lana Del Rey. Miss Lana, she really sums up grief very well in that album. The whole album, it is a beautiful storytelling of grief. But, well, first of all, let me just say, the reason why I love Terminal Paradise, this beautifully written song, is because see my death become a trail, and the trail leads to a flower. she says, let the rest of me go. So it's like in that process of letting go, in that essence of releasing somebody, allowing their death to kind of become a trail. Like, we're still here, we're still moving through this life, and allowing kind of that loss to become a new path or a new trail for us. And that trail leads to a flower, new life, new beginnings. Like I said in the very beginning, grief and death and loss and change must happen in order to create anew, in order to build anew, in order to experience new things. We must experience loss and we must experience change. And I just feel very comforted in that sense of like, that trail leads to a flower. I will blossom in your sail, every dream and waking hour. Okay, well, yeah, we don't need to read Kintsugi here, but that's a song by Lana that she talks about how just very painful, like losing loved ones and how that feels ultimately, but how the breaking of your heart in that way is how the light shines in, and you almost have to crack and break down in order for that light to shine in and for something new to be born. She references a type of Japanese art form that is called kintsugi, and it translates to golden joinery. It involves repairing broken objects with gold or silver lacquer. The technique highlights the repairs instead of hiding them, and embodies the Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi, which finds beauty in imperfection and simplicity. So that song is also one that has really helped me get through, of acknowledging that this pain can exist, and alongside it there can be light, there can be peace, there can be an end to the tunnel. I know it's a heavy feeling, and it's one that we all sort of wish to avoid or dread going through, but I guess I just wanted to make this video to show you that I've been going through it and processing it in my own ways, and trying to make the best of it and honor the ones that I've lost through what I enjoy doing, and through all the moments that I can be present with myself and these feelings, and the joy in living on in that memory and cherishing the memory of them, and realizing that this grief doesn't have to be scary. All can exist at the same time. The pain and this collective heavy feeling can be true, but also the peace and the clarity and the joy and the memory and the love we felt is also very true, and that is a gift. Thank you guys so much for sitting and chatting with me, enjoying my afternoon tea here, and taking a look at my arrangements that are dedicated to my grandparents. Yeah, I love you very much, no matter what grief you're going through, whether that's just some sort of small, big change in your life, a relationship, a loss of any sort. I promise you, everyone goes through it, and we all are experiencing it in our own ways. You're not alone. Please remember that we are on this journey together. I love you very much, and I am so grateful for everything we have here, and I can't wait for the next conversation with you guys. So thank you for being here, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Bye.